Thank you so much, Mark and Yasemin, for joining us for our seminar today for South-South Triangular Cooperation and Knowledge Sharing. We are recording this meeting, so I hope this is okay for you, Mark, and also for our Zambian delegations. The Zambian delegates were warned and informed about this, so this should be no problem. But if there is any issue, do let us know. And the idea is to have this meeting then will be stored online on our South-South platform, and as well as our Spark Blue page for UNDP. We had a meeting as the Asian Forestry Corporation where Philippine was mentioned a lot, and I would say it's a very perfect transition for hearing from you, Mark, in the next hour or so. And yes, we headed directly, but then we needed a bit of time to set up the room. It's a room we didn't know because it's in a hotel, and we will turn a bit the computer around so that you can see all the delegates as when they ask questions or when we do interaction. So warm thank you again as well to Zambian delegates for being there today. And I would suggest we have Yasemi Derabasi, who works as a development cooperation program analyst within UNDP Seoul Policy Center, to open this meeting. Yasemin, over to you.
It's very nice to also see the Zambian colleagues again, and I'm happy to be at least virtually connected. And before listening to our colleague from UNDP Philippines and also the Zambian colleagues, we thought it would be nice to briefly talk about the concept of South-Southern Triangular Cooperation and why it is important for us as UNDP, and how we as UNDP Seoul Policy Center, USPC, how we try to also integrate South-Southern Triangular Cooperation in our programmatic work, because we don't see this only as an end product, but also as a means in our programmatic work to achieve development solutions. So why is South-Southern Triangular Cooperation, or SSTC, important? Because it's contributing to the transformation of the norms and principles of international cooperation, and it complements the traditional sources of cooperation that we're used to, like North-South cooperation. But it also accelerates progress towards the 2030 Agenda and other development goals by enabling the sharing of experiences and best practices, exactly what we're doing here today. So SSTC also plays a crucial role in responding to global crises by facilitating rapid support and sharing development solutions among the Global South as well as the Global North. And this we specifically also were able to observe during the COVID pandemic, for example. And in this context, many efforts are already underway within the United Nations system to leverage SSTC, for example, to support and facilitate policy dialogues, to provide technical assistance and normative support, to forge collaborative alliances, and to broker knowledge. And within this, UNDP, or we as UNDP, we are strategically positioned to play a pivotal role in SSTC, acting not only as a knowledge broker, but also capacity development supporter and partnership facilitator. And as a knowledge broker, we as UNDP share insights on both successful but also unsuccessful development solutions, while systematically providing information on SSTC activities. And this is exactly where we as USPC try to come in and complement corporate approaches. So in alignment with our triennial work program spanning from 2023 to 2025, we are aiming to facilitate innovative development cooperation at the Seoul Policy Center. And at the heart of this effort lies our flagship cooperation modality, which we call the SDG partnership, which you're very familiar with, as we have our previous SDG partner as well as current SDG partner with us today. So the SDG Partnership Initiative is designed to promote global knowledge exchange, stimulate demand-driven solutions, and nurture collaborative platforms and partnerships like the one we have with you for development through trilateral cooperation. And this is very, very important for us because exchanging successful development practices and lessons learned among our partner countries is very important, with the goal to achieve what we call a multiplier effect in our strategy, where the benefits of shared knowledge extend beyond the initial participants, which you can basically understand as some sort of a spillover effect of the knowledge that is being accurated in our SDG partnerships. So this multiplier effect is at the core of our South-Southern Triangular Cooperation Strategy, which we have launched this year. So it's the first year of implementation. And the strategy actively collects and displays cumulated knowledge and creates a space and platform such as this, what we're doing today, for our partner countries to talk to each other and to share their best practices, because although the context that we have might differ, the challenges are often very similar. So Arnaud mentioned already the designated SSTC space, where we will be also uploading this video. We just launched a designated SSTC space on our USPC website, where you can access all sorts of learning material from previous as well as from currently ongoing SDG partnerships. So please have a look. And that is specifically why we also highly appreciate the knowledge exchange today, and we very much look forward to learning from you. That's it from me. Thank you very much. Back to you, Arnaud.
Thank you so much, Yasemin, for this great introduction. And it's a shame that we cannot have you with us due to the COVID restrictions that we are facing here in Seoul, because as Mark might not be aware of, we had a case in our office, so there's nothing wrong, but we're just trying to be a bit cautious so that we don't jeopardize the mission for Zambian delegates and make sure they can make the most out of this week. So big thanks, Mark. It's really an honor that you are here with us today. You are a program analyst in the climate action team of UNDP Philippines, and you have led this project with UNDP Seoul Policy Center and called the SDG Partnership Project, with a very similar project that we're developing here with Zambia that just started this year with Zambia. So we will be happy to talk more about this. Before we hand over the floor to you, Mark, I will suggest we have a brief introduction by the different colleagues so that you can have a bit of an idea of who you are talking to and who you are presenting to. As Yasemin said, we had a very exciting seminar in the previous month, 2 months ago. It was done by Ghana colleagues on forest fire prevention. And at the other end was the Namibian delegation to Korea. So for us, it's a new thing. We didn't really have these SSTC exchanges before. And last event was really enjoyable for our delegates, and they were able to ask very concrete questions. So please, I'll ask my delegates to ask as many questions as possible during the time you are making yourself available for us, Mark. So let me hand over the floor to our head of the Zambian delegation, Ms. Tekla, for a quick introduction.
Thank you very much, Arnaud. And I'm Tekla Kafwimbi from the Forest Department under the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment. I'm the lead team for the Zambian delegation, and in my team we are 6 with a representation from the UNDP country office. We have 1 delegate representing the office. We have 2 district forest officers working in the pilot sites under the UN support program. We also are joined by 2 community members from the 2 piloting sites. So I'll ask my team to quickly just introduce themselves. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Isaac Chisowi Mwenda. I'm the District Forestry Officer for Kazungula, Southern Province of Zambia. Thank you.
But now you are on the same screen, so do you want to say hi?
My name is Bitna Lee, and I'm an audience consultant at USPC with Arnaud and Vincent. Nice to meet you, and thank you for this opportunity.
Vincent.
I'm Minjin, and I'm the intern of USPC.
Hi, my name is Esther Nkomo. I'm a program analyst for Environment and Energy, UNDP Zambia Country Office.
Hi.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Charity Sianga from Kazungula District, Southern Province, representing the community.
Virtual.
I am Kibra from First Department, Northwestern Province, specific Kasempa District. Daud from Kasempa, Northwestern Province, and the chairperson for the Forest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, colleagues, for introducing yourselves. I think we didn't forget anyone. So, no, we didn't, right? So, Mark, thank you for being patient, and over to you for a brief explanation of what you have accomplished in the Philippines.
Yes, thank you very much, Arnold. And of course, it's good to know Yasmin and our partners from USP, UNDP Seoul Policy Center in Korea. Of course, our partners come from Zambia, no? And let me just share my screen for the presentation. Okay, just a minute. Oh, sorry, I need to quit the application first because I need to establish connection with the camera. So just give me a minute, sorry.
Please take your time. So Yasemin, while Mark is setting up the conference, do you want to explain a bit the platform, what it is about? Because, it's just a very brief introduction of what you have developed this year, because it's really exciting. And, we are during... Oh, Mark, you're already back. So
yeah, sorry for that. I just received this new laptop from the office, so I still need to set up some of the options in Teams. No, anyway, let me just check if I can already share my screen.
Okay. So let's see if you can share. Yeah, but if you need more time,
yeah. Can you already see my screen?
It's about to show up. Like there was
okay.
a change. So give us a few seconds. We're still waiting, but
it's showing.
It will happen eventually. It will happen. Can you see it? Yes, I mean, because on our side we don't see the screen. We just see a gray space. But
Same here.
Same here. Okay, good. No, Yasemin also only sees a gray space.
Yes.
No.
Let me close it again, then open it. See sharing again. Okay.
Oh yeah, that would be really good. Yeah. Let me prepare it.
Okay.
Are you cool, Tekla? Yes. Okay. Maybe you can. Yeah. We don't want to. You need to be healthy for the forever, but also this week,
Sorry. Well.
Don't worry, Mark. I think what Bitna suggested is if it doesn't work, we will use the presentation you sent us.
Yeah. How about now? Can you see it now?
No.
No,
the same gray area.
Same
gray
area. So maybe I can present using the PowerPoint presentation that I shared with you.
Yeah, exactly. It's the one you sent yesterday evening. So we are opening it now, and actually maybe I will share it maybe from my screen as well. Maybe.
Yeah.
It will be easy. Just give me 1 second as well.
Anyway, I hope that our Zambian friends and delegates can learn a lot from our experience here in the Philippines, especially in implementing community forestry in Mindanao.
Yeah, maybe Mark, as we hear you well, I suggest you start directly, by explaining a bit, and I will be
Yes.
able to share in a second.
So again, thank you very much and good afternoon to all of you. Before I begin the presentation, I would like to express my gratitude, of course, to Arnold and our UNDP Seoul Policy Center colleagues, Yasmin, MJ, for allowing us to present our project in Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. That's short for BARM or BARMM. And of course, for supporting us in implementing this project in the camps towards sustainable forest management. So let us just wait for the presentation. Anyway, as a background, we received a call from UNDP Seoul Policy Center way back. Yeah, that's presentation.
Alright. That's good.
Okay, let's go to slide number 2. The next slide.
Okay.
Yeah, as a background, we received a call from UNDP Seoul Policy Center way back in 2022 to submit an expression of interest for the SDG Partnership of Sustainable Forestry and to connect Korea to a wider UNDP network and, of course, contribute to the sustainable management of our remaining forest resources. We immediately thought of Mindanao, where we have been engaging with the BARM government to provide peace and development package in support of the peace agreement with the separatist movement. No? Next slide, please. So, of course, we're doing this project in partnership also with the Korean University and NIFOS. And of course, in terms of project objectives, we envision to achieve 3 objectives at the end of the project. One is to have a strong community LGU stakeholder partnership for the effective implementation of camp-based sustainable forestry management. And of course, to generate and implement community-based forest management that will address food security and of course must provide economically viable livelihood to target communities. And the last objective, number 3, is to promote the concept of agroforestry and explore other options, tree plantation management, nursery establishment, through resource assessment and participatory planning. No? And we hope that we were able to accomplish all of these projects. Incidentally, the project ended technically last July 30, and we're now doing the final reporting and we hope that we provide all the necessary details of a successful community-based forest management project in that report. No? Next page, next slide, please. Yeah, before I present the project and its accomplishment, let me just give you a brief background of Mindanao. It's located in the southern Philippines and the armed struggle that our Muslim brothers waged for decades. No? Mindanao was historically a place belonging to the Muslim. In the 17th century, the area was dominated by people from different Muslim tribes. But by 20th century, due to colonization, their population dwindled. That resulted to marginalization, economic underdevelopment, political exclusion, and pervasive socioeconomic issues. In the 1970s, Muslim scholars established the Moro National Liberation Front, or MNLF, which waged a separatist movement through armed struggle. During this same decade, the government opened up Mindanao for migration, no? Those coming from Luzon and other areas in Visayas to resettle in Mindanao, which made the Muslim brothers insecure in terms of their tenurial rights and in their ancestral domain. No? So after almost 2 decades of war, the government of the Philippines and the MNLF eventually entered into a peace accord that resulted to the creation of the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. But the struggle didn't end there, and another separatist movement, the MILF, was born. No? This time, MILF stands for Moro Islamic Liberation Front. Where they waged armed struggle for close to 2 decades. So the conflict lasted until 2016 when the MILF and the Philippine government again signed a peace agreement and established the Bangsamoro Autonomous Farm, this time with emphasis to Bangsamoro, which means Muslim brotherhood, no, or Muslim people. Up until today, the peace agreement is making significant progress through normalization and political tracks. And in terms of the normalization track, by giving up their arms, the government will provide socioeconomic intervention for various MILF camps where UNDP is one of the organizations providing and extending technical and financial assistance to former MILF combatants and their families. The political track, on the other hand, is in terms of representation in the political decision making and governance in the entire Muslim Mindanao region. Next slide, please. Okay, most of the MLF camps house the existing and remaining natural forest cover of the region, BARM, which is said to be the constituting around 40% of the total land area of the autonomous region, where various endemic species of flora and fauna can still be found. These forests were protected during the conflict, but in time of peace, some of these forests were decimated to give way to farms and illegal logging. So that's why, to prevent further forest destruction, the project, with the support of UNDP Soil Policy Center, design an intervention that will help the camp leaders and their families transition to civilian life and ensure community-led forest management through planning and capacity building activities. So we also did several activities, including planning, resource mapping, that we will learn later now in the other slides. So next slide, please. Okay, well, we noticed that UNDP's prior interventions in the areas, especially in the camps, were focused on food security and sustainable agriculture, but without clear efforts on what is happening in the upper portion of the camps. Thus, we introduced the concept of watershed management, wherein various ecosystem services are produced by the forests that benefit downstream areas. For instance, water for irrigation, soil nutrient to ensure sustainable crop production downstream, and others. No, without these ecosystem services, production of essential goods in agriculture is significantly affected. Hence, effective management of upstream areas should also be included in peace and development efforts inside these camps. So right now, this concept, the link between sustainable forest management and peace and development is already clear within the minds of our beneficiaries. No, both are coming from the camps and their communities, as well as the local government units that encompass these camps. No, next slide, please. Yes, to do this, we need to have the necessary ingredients for successful intervention. No? One is that we need to have a viable organization that will provide and continue what we have started in this project now. And that is represented by the MENRE, or the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources Office, which is the primary government agency in BARM responsible for implementing sustainable forest management activities in forest areas. No, BENRE is established by the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, which is the authority created by the peace agreement to govern the and implement the peace agreement. Right now, MENRE is implementing small-scale camp-based reforestation activities and under the umbrella of Integrated Bangsamoro Greening Program. So they are also targeting open areas even outside of the camp MILF camps to increase and expand the natural forest cover. Okay, next slide, please. In terms of partnership and sustainability, of course, we have MENRE on board. And MENRE is being led by the Minister of who is also part of the Parliament and who sits also in the Joint Implementing Panel for Camp Transformation. This panel oversees the camp transformation initiatives in terms of providing socioeconomic packages to MILF, to combatants, former MILF combatants, to help them transition to civilian life. No, of course, we are also lucky that we were able to partner with some local academic institutions, particularly the Mindanao State University, who provides technical assistance to MENRE as well as in other camps. And part of the target of the project is to also link with the national government agencies, particularly the Biodiversity Management Bureau and the Forest Management Bureau of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources based in Manila. So in terms of sustainability, of course, UNDP provides advisory support to MENRE, which we hope that this will facilitate the incorporation of the lessons learned from this project. Right now, we are also providing technical assistance in terms of drafting the Sustainable Forest Management Bill for the Bangsamoro region, which adopts sustainable community-based forest management as the main strategy for forest management. No, and of course, we are also partnering with other institutions such as the DBP Forest in providing grants to establish nursery, tree plantations, and agroforestry farms inside the camps. Next slide, please. Okay, in terms of the scope of assistance, we have two camps as project sites. One is in Camp Abubakar in Barira, Maguindanao. Incidentally, Camp Abubakar is the main headquarters of the MILF, and which was heavily devastated during the 2000 all-out war waged by the government. And but fortunately, right now the forest was rehabilitated, and some of it went again to have a natural forest cover. No, and the other site is in Camp Suran, Datu Odin Sinswat, Maguindanao. Actually, Camp Suran is formerly part of Camp Abubakar, but during the 2000 all-out war, they separated from the main camp and established their own camp in Datu Udin Sinsuat. Both camps are predominantly composed of Muslims and, of course, with minority Christians and indigenous peoples, no, group in Mindanao. Next slide, please. Okay, in terms of the activities, we have four major activities. No, one is that initiation and community preparation. So before we entered the area, the two camps, there were numerous coordination with various government agencies, especially those involved in the peace process. So there are a lot of clearances that we need to secure before initiating the partnership with the community, inside the camps. And eventually, we were able to get their partnership through the MENRE, no? The Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources in Energy office. So once we are inside, we were inside, we did baselining, mapping, and inventory. So basically, we needed to know what are those natural resources or resources that are currently existing in the area before we can introduce strategies on how to protect and expand the forest cover. And we did this through community resource mapping and planning. And after that, after we produce the different thematic maps and the plans and the strategies, we did community mapping development planning activities. So basically coming from the resources inside these areas, the community plan among themselves the strategies to be implemented for forest production and forest protection activities. Then after that, we reinforce the skills that they learned during those previous activities through capacity building. So, well, later I will show you some pictures of the our visit in Bukidnon, cross-site visit with the two camps to learn more about sustainable forest management and the ones that I told you earlier on nursery establishment and tree plantation establishment. And at the end of the project, at the later part of the project, we also did some piloting of camp-based forestry management system, especially in delineating forest production and forest protection zone. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide. Yeah. So these are just some of the photos during the planning activities that we did for the two camps. You see in the pictures that also we also have participation coming from the local government unit, especially from the environment office, to do a participatory resource mapping in Camp Suran and in Camp Abu Bakar. We also have, I think, two or three more workshops before we produce the thematic maps that I will show to you in the next slides. No? Next slide, please. So the participants during the community mapping exercises are basically the MILF combatants, former MILF combatants, as well as their communities, no? And I think around 30% of the participants belong to the women's group, no? Who are also very active in terms of really providing assistance to their community members for food security and as well as in natural resources management. And in your screen right now are some of the thematic maps that we produced during the community resource mapping. Of course, these are the data or information coming from the resource mapping were translated into GIS maps, and we have I think we produce around 13 thematic maps, and we use these maps as basis for our planning, no? For instance, if you can see the existing land resources use map, we identified there the different resources inside the area. And of course, looking at the land cover, you also have the natural existing or natural forest cover, natural vegetation. And those natural vegetation were eventually uh, included in forest protection zone, no? And those belonging to other land uses such as unalienable disposable land as well as agricultural lands are delineated for uh, forest production, no? Zone, wherein many types of activities can be allowed, no, to be implemented. Next slide, please. So those are the thematic maps coming from Abu Bakar. And just to show you some two thematic maps from Camp Suran, we also have a slope map and topography map, and that we use in community planning, no? And as well as in really thinking about what are the strategies suitable for these areas, no? As compared to Camp Abubakar, Camp Suran is mostly hilly and Mount hilly terrain, rolling terrain. So these are more appropriate for production zones, no? Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, well, during the duration of the project, we were able to provide capacity building uh, uh, workshops and programs to around 52 trainees. Of course, we asked the partnership of MENRE, especially in terms of community resource management and planning. We have 15 personnel coming from MENRE, 20 personnel or participants coming from the two camps, 10 participants each. And of course, we also have participants coming from provincial and municipal LGUs, around 18. So more than 30% of these total participants are women, no? So we are proud to report that we also were able to target the women group in terms of capacitating them on natural resources management. Next slide, please. I think the next series of well, in terms of accomplishments, well, these are the accomplishment of the project. Of course, we produce different thematic maps, which were used as basis for community-based forest management planning and zoning, particularly in first delineating the forest protection zone and the forest production zone. Forest protection zone are those areas with 18 to 50%, 18 and above percent slope, and those with 16 natural forest cover are part of the forest protection zone. Outside of that, are the forest production areas which are suitable for tree plantation, agroforestry, and sustainable agriculture. No? Once we have those thematic maps and uh, implemented or did the community planning, we were able to prepare and validate the community resource management framework for the two camps. The CRMF, or the community resource management framework, is the strategy or the plan of the two camps for 25 years, representing their vision for the camps in terms of forest management and livelihood generation. No? Uh, and of course, for the forest production zone, we also uh, plan out areas that will be allocated for tree plantation and other land uses. No? So after that, we did a training cross-site visit in Bukidnon, which was participated by the two camps and as well as the local government units and MENRE. And the training ran for 5 days, wherein they were able to learn uh, sustainable forest management strategies and other livelihood options that they can do inside the camps, no, using their resources that they can get from their forests, no. And with the support of the LGU, Barira, and the participants coming from Camp Suran, the two camps were able to establish their own nursery, no? And I think one of the lessons learned that we heard from the resource person in Bukidnon is that right now there is a lack of forest nurseries in the region. So one of the best case scenario for the two camps is to enter into forest nursery business or enterprise to provide seedlings to a wide range of uh, uh, suppliers, no, and of course government units, local government units. Next slide, please. Okay. Yes. During this
And,
project also,
Mark,
we were, yes.
I think that might not have come through, but LGUs is the local government units, just
Yeah,
in case.
LGU is local government unit. Yeah. This represents the municipal or town government, no, in charge of the governance in these areas, no. Okay, okay. Just to continue, in terms of accomplishment, we established two models for CBFM. One is camp-based, especially in Camp Suran, wherein we are covering the whole camp in terms of the planning and the next steps. Another is barangay or village-based in Camp Abubakar, because Camp Abubakar is composed of several municipalities belonging to two provinces, Maguindanao del Norte and Maguindanao del Sur. So we cannot cover that in the limited project duration. So as a complement, we establish a barangay-based, community-based forest management model in Camp Abubakar. And I think we are very strong in terms of partnership with the Ministry of Environment, Natural Resources, and Energy. And the LGUs are continuously communicating with us and providing us feedback in terms of what are really needed inside the camps. And of course, the two camps are also uh, open to future partnership with other actors, no? And I think this was in part produced by the project, no? And of course, we were able to link climate change, natural resources management, and peace and development in camp transformation through learnings, of course, coming from Korea. Because during the first workshop that we did way back in 2020 through 2023, the very first online workshop was participated by representatives coming from NIFOS and Korean University. So they are very grateful for the learnings that were imparted by our Korean partners, no? And of course, when we did the cross-site visit in Bukidnon, Dr. Son also presented some of the successful cases in Korea, no, on forest rehabilitation and afforestation. Aside from that, part of the accomplishment of the project is that we were able to incorporate some of the learnings coming from this project to the Sustainable Forest Management Bill, no? And the Sustainable Forest Management Bill is expected to be sent for deliberation to the Barn Parliament next month. So part of this includes the Sustainable Forest Management, the CBFM models that we envision for the different camps, and of course the entry of the voluntary carbon market that we hope to continue after this project, no? And for other opportunities, UNDP Philippines is also in coordination or in collaboration with the DBP, Development Bank of the Philippines. This is a government financial institution which provides grants for the establishment of nurseries, tree plantation, and agroforestry in other parts of the Philippines. Well, this is the first time that they are entering Mindanao, especially in camps, to provide this financial assistance. No? And we hope that the first two beneficiaries are Camp Suran and Camp Abubakar. Okay, next slide, please. I think the next series of slides are just showing you some pictures of the camps. Well, starting first with Camp Suran, no? This is the pictures taken inside the areas, so you can have a general picture of what the condition in the area, no? In Camp Suran, we already have established cooperative, the Kayod Ka Bangsamoro People's Cooperative, which is composed of former MILAP combatants. The one handling the seedling is Commander Bashir, who's leading the cooperative. And those planting materials in the background came from our site visit in Bukidnon, no? So they are now propagating bamboo as well as pine in this in their area in Kamsoran, no? Next slide, please. Okay, you can see the terrain of Kamsoran. It's basically hilly and rolling, and most of the areas are still open vegetation, grassland, brushland, and some of these are being planted to corn and upland rice. And we hope that some of these areas can also be planted with forest trees, no, and agroforestry species. Incidentally, for the development DBP forest, they are also encouraging farmers to plant native species, no, especially the Dipterocarp, those endemic species in the area. Next slide, please. So you have some species of banana intercrop with cassava and corn. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is what we noticed, no? When I visited the area, I noticed that even after heavy downpour of rain, the water in the river still remains clear, no? So meaning upstream, they still have a good forest cover, and this provides various ecosystem services, particularly water, no, which is being used both as irrigation purposes and for potable water in households, no. You can see that we need to really preserve the area for the benefit of downstream consumers and beneficiaries. Next slide, please. Okay, next. Okay, aside from agriculture, they also have CB pastoral practices. They raise goats, and I think they want to expand this in the future to cover as many as beneficiaries in the area, no, inside the camps as possible. No? Thank you. Next slide, please. Still some photos of the vegetation of the area, grassland, and of course some tree cover. This is actually going to the next slide, the nurseries, no? Okay, as part of their learnings in our cross-site visit, they were able to establish a mini nursery composed of seedlings coming from Bukidnon, no? Pine, bamboo, as well as native species, no? And they plan to have these seedlings commercialized, no? Meaning they are planning to sell this in the market as part of their livelihood activity. Okay, now we're proceeding to Camp Abubakar. So this is the picture inside the camp. You have the malls and other community features. Next slide, please. As compared to Camp Suran, Camp Abubakar is composed of mountainous areas. And average elevations is around 1,200 to 1,400 meters above sea level. So you can see some straight bowl, but right now because of the peacetime, some of the farmers are opening up the forest for kaingin or Sweden farming. Even you can see a road inside the camp, which is an access road from Barira municipality going to Marawi City. So, but we're still fortunate that the road did not result to the entry of settlers coming from the lowland. Practically, the area is still pristine in terms of its condition. Okay, they also have plenty of waterfalls, and which is a good source of water going downstream. And
Sorry.
yeah.
What you were saying an interesting thing about the road. So you're saying the road are threatened by
Yeah.
land degradation, by landslide. Is this what you were saying?
Yeah. Actually, the road right now is not being threatened, not yet being threatened by settlers, mainly because of the presence of MILF and other. Of course, there's also another camp of military inside the area. These groups monitor the areas for illegal intrusion. No? So this made the forest still intact. No? Okay, so aside from the forest cover, of course they have the falls and of course the water. Incidentally, they're planning to open up some of the uh, uh, attraction inside the camps as part of their ecotourism strategy, no? So just to collect user fee for both local and international tourists to come in. And Camp Abubakar is also planning to have a camp-based tourism wherein they will establish a type of tourism started in Vietnam, wherein they will provide lectures about the history of their armed struggle and what made the success of the area in terms of forest resource management. No? Okay, these are some of the pictures downstream. So they also have coconut plantation as well as rice cultivation. Huh? So this actually for Camp Abukar, you actually have a landscape approach to resource management, forest resource management. Okay, just to show you some of the pictures coming from our trip in Bukidnon. So these pictures were showing to you uh, the resource person is teaching them on how to produce natural growth hormones. So coming from molasses and mixing this with all available resources in the area, for instance, grass and meat that can be used or mixed with molasses to produce growth hormones. No, we also have they also were able to learn about organic agriculture, how to replicate this initiative in their farms. Right there, you can see that they were also were able to harvest some of the produce coming from the Binaon farm, and they were also taught on how to uh, sow seeds and produce organic materials for agriculture. Next slide, please, for nursery establishment. And of course, because the area are hilly and mountainous, they were also taught of using the A-frame uh, to uh, to practice sloping agriculture land technologies. So they will establish the contour wherein you will follow the contour in terms of cultivating your crops. No, next slide, please. Okay, another interesting training or activity that we did in Bukidnon is that the camp beneficiaries were also taught of some livelihood options, particularly baking, no? Baking using organic materials, kamote, cassava, or banana and carrot. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I think the next slide is my last slide for today. Okay, some of the lessons learned and recommendations that we were able to produce during the project. No, one is that building trust is essential for fostering relationship with the camps. Coming from a conflict situation, they were not easily they are not easily enticed to partner with other stakeholders. So we really work on our trust and building their trust. Then, of course, without effective and sustainable management of natural resources, there will be no peace and development, because peace and development as well as NRM are directly linked to each other, no? And of course, community-based forest management is vital for both forest protection and forest production efforts inside the camps. And of course, we also learned that getting the active involvement of camp leaders, their families, and indigenous people is critical for the success of this initiative. And of course, uh, while there are a lot of former MLF combatants in the areas, we also we also made sure that we partner with the women group in terms of providing livelihood and providing support to natural resources management practices. And of course, lastly, the long-term success of this initiative will heavily rely on the backing of or support of BARM, the local government units, and other stakeholders. Okay, I think that's my last slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mark. Please keep your, we'll keep your PPT open because there will be some questions on what you just presented. But before we open the floor, let's maybe clap for Mark and thank him for taking some of his time for us. And let me now open the floor to colleagues. So, do you have any questions and on what has been achieved in the Philippines? And if not, maybe you also want to share some of your policy challenges that you face, both at the national level for Zambia, but also at the local level in Kazemba or Kazungula. That might also be interesting, and maybe because Mark has worked directly on maybe not all the issues because it's different landscape. There is no the conflict part is not present in Zambia, but there might be some similar issues that I've been facing. So please, and then I might come later. But please, colleagues, if you have any points you want to make or questions.
Mark, thank you for the presentation. I think you've done quite a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. For how long have you been implementing? If we just learn from you.
Actually, the project started in 2022 or 2022, but I just joined UNDP in February 2022, so they just gave this project to me and implemented it for 1 year, no? Starting February 2023 until, well, almost 2 years, no? Until July of this year.
Okay. So, and then the next question, I've seen you're working very well with the community. How do you manage to mobilize them, and are there incentives that attracts them to work on this project?
Yes, in terms of the incentive, okay, we practically work on the normalization track of the peace agreement. So the entry point of this initiative is through that track. We bring in socioeconomic incentives, coming from our peace team in Cotabato. And of course, the entry of the climate action program team in these areas is to really provide guidance on how to manage sustainably the remaining natural resources. And that's not very easy in the beginning, because you need to get their trust, no, coming from a conflict situation. But because of the active partnership of MENRE, who has existing relationship with the communities inside the camps, we were able to get their support and provide technical assistance. And of course, the basis of the project is really in terms of their needs, no? We really base our intervention in terms of their needs. For instance, they clamor for more intervention at natural resources management, tree plantation establishment, agroforestry, and livelihood strategies, no? So we provided those interventions to them in terms of the capacity building efforts and the planning, no, planning initiatives of the project. So really, well, in terms of the major activities, it really boils down to two. One is that we really need to have a plan in terms of how to manage the existing forest cover into the future. And number two is on how to provide them alternative livelihood system, which I think will be produced through the establishment of the nursery, during forest nurseries. No? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Do we have any other questions or points? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anton. Good presentation. Maybe the question we, as you are implementing this project, have you faced any challenges? Any challenges?
There are a lot of challenges actually. One is that, of course, it's not easy to partner with MLF combatants, because right now there are still security issues in the area. So access to the camps are practically limited. But because of our partnership with MENRE, who has access 24/7 to the sites, we were able to go inside the camps and do the activities. No? Number two is that we still need to capacitate not just the commanders, but also the MENRE, the MENRE staff, because MENRE was only established 2 years ago, and some of their staff are not yet really familiar with how community-based forest management works inside the camps. So these are, I think, the two main challenges that we face during the project implementation, that we were also able to address during the one year and a half implementation of our activities. And to add, I think another challenge right now, existing issue inside the camp, is that more areas are now being opened up through kaingin or Sweden farming, because they need livelihood opportunities. No, we cannot blame entirely the communities inside the camps to cut trees and open up areas for farming. But we do analyze this as part of the challenges in terms of poverty alleviation. And that's why we are introducing the concept of voluntary carbon market to preserve the remaining forests and get some benefits coming from the partnership with the private sector. No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark, for the presentation and some insightful information regarding to the lessons learned in your implementation of this project. I think I've got only two things that I would need clarity on. the first one, I think I kind of like maybe got lost. You mentioned about the camp based and the village based. So in my mind, I was thinking, were there this implementation done in different sites, or how do you describe this to differentiate? Then the second one is in your implementation, I would really want or love um, to to also um, get an understanding in terms of capacity building. What kind of trainings were given to these communities for them to actually maybe succeed in what they are doing today? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for those two questions, no? One, in terms of the model, well, the village model, we did that in Camp Abubakar because Camp Abubakar is the main camp of the MILF. It's a very big camp encompassing several municipalities. So for us to really make a dent in terms of forest management, we discuss on how to deal with this issue, and the community, they themselves responded that it's better to concentrate our effort in one village to maximize, of course, and optimize our resources, no? So that's one. And of course, this is not discounting the fact that they can also um, establish other village forestry in the area uh, to later that will encompass the whole of Abubakar maybe in the future, no? And for the camp base, Camp Suran is a small camp covering around 1,000 hectares. So it's very easy to organize them into an association and capacitate them on natural resources management. So they also would like to engage all the community members, both coming from the Muslim groups and the minority groups in indigenous people, no? So those are the factors that we we included in terms of establishing the different models, the two models, no, one camp base and village base. And for the second question on capacity building, well, prior to our site visit in Bukidnon, in still in Mindanao, we did a training needs assessment. So based from this training need assessment, they said that they wanted to learn more about tree plantation and agroforestry farm management. So we we design a capacity building program covering these areas, no? And in terms of, well, we actually have 4 separate trainings in our design that we did in one site visit, no, in Bukidnon, covering all the areas that they want to learn. And of course, the training need assessment also covers those areas or areas that need to be learned by MENRE officials and LGU officials, no? So we're very fortunate one of these was done by both camps, no? So they established their own nursery. For Camp Suran, they used their own funds to establish the nursery, and for Camp Abubakar, they were able to secure funding from the local government unit to provide them the necessary materials to establish the nursery.
But maybe a follow-up, since we're talking about the nurseries. How do they do the benefit sharing?
Right now, of course, for Camp Suran, they already have the cooperative as part of their system, natural resources management system. So I think one of those really needing assistance is to establish the sharing mechanism. But part of the sharing is that the cooperative and the individual will equally share the profit from the nursery. That's 50-50, 50% for the cooperative and 50% for the individual. But of course, the local government unit will provide the necessary inputs to produce this to first they're still looking into some sharing mechanism that they will adopt later on. No?
Thank you, Mark. I think also one point I had before we close, because we don't want to take too much of your time, is also on the applications, you know, for green entrepreneurship for the nurseries that Esther just mentioned. If there is, you know, any materials that can be sent, I know your NGO IRDT that you're working with is working on some knowledge products that could be very interesting to share with Zambian colleagues on how you are doing this, because it wouldn't be the solution for all the problems that we are facing, but it could be interesting. And we just had a discussion with Ms. Tekla and the marketing, you know, presentation of how the business is being done can be very useful. So any capacity building resources on this can be very interesting, and we could also consider having trainings, the same trainings that took place. You know, I know that the English, it was not probably done in English, but probably in the local language, but still there are probably some examples. And also similarly on what is technology driven, I think you introduced some maps. Right now there might be some interesting applications based on the mappings that you have been done. Maybe these are replicable in Zambia for relatively cheap amount of money, and so that might make it realistic, you know. So it will be interesting in seeing if this could be replicated locally.
Thank you very much, Arnold. Yes, IRDT is still producing or finalizing the video material, no? Especially showing what are the different activities conducted in the site. Materials, IEC materials that we are now finalizing is a briefer in terms of what are the necessary steps in terms of community resource management planning, the step-by-step activities that you need to conduct in order to produce the thematic maps that I've shown earlier. And of course, these maps are very critical in delineating the forest protection and production zone that will be the basis of your strategies, no, in managing the remaining forest resources inside the camps. So we're still finalizing those materials, and once we have the final version, we will send it to you for distribution. Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe, Mark, if it is possible, I would love that you also probably share the community resource management framework document. I would love to compare a few materials from our ends on how we have been actually processing or facilitating for the formation of this community forest management group from our end. Because with our documents, is we do it together with the community. It's a participatory approach that we are using. So I would really love to get a quick review of some of the documentation that you are using, because as a country, we are in the process of amending our statutory instrument on the regulation and community forest management. So probably we could tap into some of the informations or the activities or how the proceedings on how you have actually been implementing community forest management in the Philippines? Thank you.
Yeah, yes. We would be happy to share also the final document on a community resource management framework. Incidentally, the CRMF is the represents the vision of the community and how they will manage their resources for the next 25 years. And this will be approved by the MENRE as the main government agency in charge of managing the forest lands in the BARM region. No? And after MENRE's approval of the document, this will still be translated into 5-year work plan, wherein they will also provide us an idea of the financial resources needed in implementing the activities that they envision, no, for 5 years. And this will be revisited after 5 years also, and will be approved by MENRE. Again, no, thank you.
Thank you.
So we
Does anyone-
will be happy to share with you the document. Maybe I can also share with you some policies, because at the national level, we also have a policy on community-based forest resource management. That is somewhat similar with the BARM model, but of course with cultural sensitivities in BARM. No? Thank you.
Any other questions from delegates? No? Oh, Isaac.
Yeah, so I understand that the project has now come to an end, and the community must be at a point where they are self-sufficient now. I was wondering, do you have any post monitoring activities afterwards, or you leave them completely to be on their own?
Okay, yeah. Yes, we will still monitor the activities for the next year, simply because these two camps are also part of the camp transformation project of UNDP Peace Team, no? So there will be also continuous activities inside these camps. And currently, we're also looking for other opportunities, funding opportunities. I think we were able to present a proposal to Qatar Fund to continue some of the our initiative on community-based forest management. And we're also would want to explore other opportunities coming from UNDP Seoul Policy Center in the future, no? And another initiative that we're doing internally is that we're also helping the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources, Energy, to come up with their guidelines on carbon forestry, voluntary carbon market. It's for that BCM to really work, we need a viable organization on the ground that will manage and expand their forests. So we are still working with the communities continuously, and hopefully we can get additional funding to really aside from continuing our work in the two camps, we also plan to expand to other camps in the region. No? Actually, under the peace agreement, there are 6 major camps that need to be provided with technical assistance, as well as 32 satellite camps of MIF that needs further help, no, in terms of managing the resources. So UNDP will still be working with MENRE to target these camps and other camps in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other points of questions? No. And I see on my left, nobody. So, Mark, big congratulations for completing the project, and hopefully it will lead to some very positive changes and follow-ups in the region you're working on. Big thanks for also giving us your time today. And may I suggest, colleague, we give Mark a round of applause.
Thank you.
So, Mark, we will keep in touch on the follow-ups that was just mentioned by Ms. Tekla.
Mhm.
Again, if you have any ideas as well, like just don't hesitate to reach out because it can be very useful and inspiring. So many thanks, and have a good evening in the Philippines.
Yeah, thank you very much. And of course, thank you very much for our Zambian colleagues. And I hope that you learn some lessons coming from the Philippines. No, thank you very much, and we hope to get in touch with you in the future. Thank you. Thank you, Arnold, and of course our UNDP Seoul Policy Center colleagues.